All right. Good morning. My name is Karen Cloyd. I'm one of the co-chairs of West County Democrats. We're glad you're here with us this morning. I have an interesting program set up for you. If you could please, if you haven't done so, if you could mute yourself, and if your phone is going to make noise close to wherever you're sitting, could you also mute it, please? My calendar tells me kind of tensely that the November 22 midterms are a year from today. I used to think when I was young and foolish that odd numbered years were actually less stress politically. I know better now. The process is always ongoing. So 1 year till midterms. Again, we're glad you're here with us this morning. You should have received the October minutes electronically. If there are any questions about those, you could let us know. Otherwise, we will continue to go on. First up is Gay with our membership report. There she is.
Okay, here. We currently have 102 paid members for 2021. November, of course, starts our kickoff for year 2022. And our membership is $20 and it's for the year 2022. So you can mail that to our P.O. Box 31034, St. Louis, Missouri, 63131. And I think we're going to put that up on the screen also. But anyway, we look forward to everyone rejoining.
Hopefully we're in the works working on meeting again in person. I am aware that some Democratic groups are meeting in person and trying to socially distance themselves from one another and wearing masks. So hopefully that could come to pass at the beginning of the year. But for right now, we're, of course, today we're on Zoom, and in December we will be on Zoom. If I can make a pitch, we could use help on the executive board. If you have pondered joining us, we're a fun bunch of people. Feel free to reach out to one of us, and we will get you on board with the rest of us, and you can see how much fun we have planning things. And again, hopefully in 22, we'll be able to meet in person and then do things like go out to lunch after meetings and things like that. Next, we have the treasurer, Jan.
Good morning. We didn't have any activity this month. We had a beginning balance of $4,930.62. We had zero revenue, zero disbursements, and our final balance was $4,930.62. We also have, you'll see on display the proposed budget for 2022. And if anyone, the board has approved it, but we need the vote of the group. So if you wouldn't mind reading it, and if you had any questions, let me know.
We need a motion to, well, is there any discussion first of all? Any questions regarding the budget? Okay. I'm at a loss as to how we do a vote on Zoom. What have we done in the past? Well, first of all, we need a motion.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I believe.
This is Glenn. I move we approve the budget as presented.
Thank you, Glenn. Do we have a second? Okay, thank you.
And then we can, there's reactions at the bottom of the screen that says raise hand. So everybody that wants to approve it can raise their hand.
Is anybody keeping track?
Having trouble seeing the whole screen.
13 participants raised hand.
Okay, Karen, okay,
15.
not everybody is.
I don't know how you raise the hand.
I raised my hand. Is it down?
I raised my hand. Okay,
Looks like the majority.
okay. Thank you, Sandra. I'll take your word
I
for it.
can't see the whole screen.
Well, when I scroll back and forth, I can see, and some people are just holding their hand up. Other people found the button to put the yellow hand
Okay,
up.
great.
All right,
Okay, thank
Great.
you.
so budget approved. All right. All right, for our program report, we have our speaker lined up for December 13th already. Michael Berg, who is Sierra Club Missouri Chapter Political Director, will be speaking with us on Monday, December 13th at 10:30. We hope you all can join us. He's going to be talking to us about things, of course, in the environment and opportunities for us to be advocates for the environment. Moving right along. Announcements. I believe we have Scott Sifton with us this morning. Hi, Scott. If you'd like to unmute yourself, we would be
Sure.
happy to hear from you.
So I was told 5 minutes. Is that about accurate?
That's good. Yes.
Very good. I will try to save. Try to save it. So yes, my name is Scott Sifton, Democratic candidate for United States Senate. I've served in the Missouri Senate for the last 8 years out of South St. Louis County. And indeed, today is 365 days away from the November 2022 midterm elections. We have 1 year from today. And my goal is, among other things, to change the narrative in this state. Look, the last few cycles have been tough for Democrats. And some of you have heard me point this out before. If you look at the actual ballots cast in 2018, when Claire McCaskill and Nicole Galloway were our U.S. Senate and Auditor candidates, the last comparable election, the Democratic vote share compared to the Republicans was 49.997% of the vote. 3 short years ago from today, 706 ballots in the state was the difference. And that doesn't guarantee us anything going into 2022, but it does paint a fundamentally different picture of what we've seen in the Trump years with the state going basically 60-40. And I think we have a tremendous opportunity. Eric Greitens is the Republican front runner, and he is beatable. And I think of this race in a lot of ways as a bipartisan effort to keep Eric Greitens out of the Senate. The Republicans are going to try really hard to stop him, but I think it's going to be left to us. And I took him on when he was governor. I was in the state Senate at that time. I was the only attorney in the state Senate at that time. And so I've not only fought and won tough races campaigning, but I've also proven what I can do in office. And I think that that's important as we go into this race. I think one of the dominant themes of the 2022 election is going to be rights generally, voting rights, a woman's right to choose, collective bargaining rights, and wages for the middle class as we see the pressures of inflation. And I have fought for all of those things in Jefferson City, and at times with great success. You know, it's been tough on choice policy, but we were able to successfully block some of the anti-choice bills that the Republicans rolled out in recent years. And I'm afraid we're going to have to fight hard to codify Roe in the U.S. Senate. We'll see what the Supreme Court does with this decision in June, but I think that's going to be very much a live legislative issue for the next Congress. On voting rights, I actually negotiated the bill that got vote by mail in our state for the first time ever in the last election, and got COVID excused absentee as well, and was a stalwart fighting on the voter ID plan. And even though we objected to the final version of that, it was a whole lot better than some of the earlier versions. And collective bargaining rights. I have fought hard for collective bargaining and against right to work. The people of the state of Missouri have backed us up, and I'm the candidate with a record on all those issues in this race. And we've won some tough fights. I unseated a Republican incumbent state senator to get to the Missouri Senate, and then 4 years later held on despite the Trump wave and despite having $1 million spent against me. So we've proven that we can weather the storm of a tough election. And unfortunately, that's something that we haven't had very many Democrats in the state that have managed to do in recent cycles. But we've got a great opportunity in front of us. And I would love to have your support as we move forward. I'd love to have your vote. ScottSifton.com is where you can find out more about us, my background, the issues that we've worked on. And for those of you that are inclined to donate, we'd love to have your help as well. Do I have a minute or two for questions, or is this not the time?
Go ahead. Anybody have any questions for Scott? I was going to say, it's not as if you're a stranger to us.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate that there are this many people on a Zoom a year out. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you today. And I really hope to get the chance to do it in person, perhaps at slightly greater length as we get farther down the road. But just grateful for all the West County Democrats do. You are a vital force in a part of the state that we're going to need to continue to turn blue. We've made great gains in West County, and we've got to keep pushing those margins up. Hopefully the new House map will give us the opportunity to pick up even more seats in the state House out of West County, and looking forward to continuing to turn the rest of St. Louis County blue along with you here in the coming year.
Scott, I do have a quick question if I can. I don't know if you saw, but yesterday on 60 Minutes, they did a piece on the Missouri law regarding something about protect the Second Amendment, and that it was the most extreme law. And although there are other states who pass similar laws, Missouri's is the most extreme, which it penalizes the law enforcement for working with the federal government.
Yep.
Do you think there's any chance of overturning that?
It'll be left up to the courts, and actually the analogous law in the abortion context is what Texas has done on abortion. Not that Missouri's law isn't bad enough, but what we're seeing in state after state is these Republican-controlled legislatures are racing to all out extreme the other. I think you're going to see some version of the Texas legislation in Missouri this year as well. We'll see. I think the Supreme Court strikes that down, and we'll see what happens on the gun law. It wouldn't be the first time that Missouri's gun laws have run afoul of the supremacy clause. I won't be surprised if the courts overturn it. At the same time, we can't take that for granted. And that's the challenge of being a state senator. There are times where you know that the Republicans are going to shove something through. You can try to water it down, but sometimes they won't even let you do that. And you just have to hope that you've done enough to shape it in a way that allows it to get overturned in the courts. And I'll tell you, I mean, there have been times on both choice and guns where that's all we've been able to do is to try to make it unconstitutional. And it's always a gamble. You know, you can take your best educated guess as to what the courts are going to do, but you don't really know. And that's frankly one of the terrible responsibilities that the 10 men and women serving as Democrats in the Missouri Senate have to discharge every day. It's, you know, the job entails some tough calls.
Any other questions for Scott?
Great. Oh, we got one more hand.
Oh, go ahead.
Unmute yourself, Marion.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Like
yes,
Dan says. Okay. Will this at first go through the Missouri Supreme Court before it goes to United States Supreme Court, or because it's involved with not dealing with the federal government, would it go immediately to the United States Supreme Court?
Yeah, my official answer to that question is not sure. Would have to look at it a little bit more to be able to answer that with greater certainty. That said, because there are supremacy clause issues. My suspicion is that there's an inchoate federal question at the very least. And so somebody challenging it very well could start in federal court. And I would think strategically one would want to. At the same time, I don't know. So I don't want to weigh in, not having looked at it under the microscope. But my suspicion is that there's a federal angle. The challenge with that, of course, is that we're in the Eighth Circuit, which isn't always where you want to end up. And so a lot of times in these legal challenges, the calculation, when the option to go state or federal court is in front of you, you have to make the calculation which bench is likely to be more favorable. And that is a difficult call, with the Eighth Circuit being relatively conservative and the Missouri Supreme Court, maybe not being 100-0 on some of these questions either.
Thank you. We'll be looking at it, seeing what happens.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the year ahead.
Okay. All right. Next, we have our speakers for the morning. We have a pair of women who have run for Missouri House seats twice, if I'm correct. They are redirecting their efforts in a new initiative, and they are here to talk to us about that today. Their initiative is called Claim Your Power Missouri, and the two ladies in question are Helena Webb and Tiana McGaw-Beret. And we're very glad that they're here with us today. They've been making the rounds, talking about their new initiative. And I won't say anything else because I'll give it all away. I've heard this before. Okay, ladies, take it away.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. A little bit more energy, everybody. Move your head, wave your hands.
Morning.
Good morning. I'll let you take it, Helena.
Okay, I want to say, Tiana, I think ran 3 times.
Oh,
just
okay.
want
I
to
was
say.
telling all my business. I was kind of
What?
like,
I'm sorry. I just want to give you credit. You've been working hard. Okay.
Yes,
yeah,
I
so
ran
thank
3
you.
times.
Thank you so much for having us. We have like a little presentation that we're going to give, some of which we'll talk over, and then some of which we'll just let play. But I'm going to share my screen if I may. That'll just help guide us a little bit here. And of course, Tiana, jump in whenever you like. How do we start Claim Your Power? Tiana came to me with some information that people in her neighborhoods weren't aware, people like her son and her nephews weren't aware of why they got a stimulus check. And all of the work that went into that, including Stacey Abrams flipping Georgia to Democrat.
They didn't know. They just liked spending the money, but they didn't actually know where it came from. And that really, really made me upset. And I am an educator. I like to teach people things that they don't know. So immediately I started going into how we had the majority and yes, how we got a new president and what Stacey Abrams did in Georgia. And they were so shocked. They couldn't believe it. And I was just like, yeah, Missouri can be that way too. Because these guys, they don't vote. They don't care to vote. They just like getting a stimulus check. So I was like, look, if you vote and you vote more often, you can get more things like this to happen for you.
Yeah. So Tiana called me up and asked me to support her idea of educating people. And I thought, wow, that's a great idea and so needed, because I felt like we, as the Democratic Party, is not reaching out to non-voters enough. And I'll share a slide about this. This is a quote from Russ Carnahan, who is supporting us, who has endorsed our program. Candidates and campaigns have just enough resources to engage likely and frequent voters, and they are unable to focus on cultivating new voters and bringing Democrats who have stopped voting back to the polls. We need to find new Democratic voters to grow our base and move towards winning again. And what we're doing is something we should be doing all over the state. So I just want to say, before we move on, We want this to be done all over the state. We want it to be done in densely populated areas where voting rates are low, and also in rural areas. But of course, everything costs money. So what we're doing is, this is like a proof of concept. We are raising money for our first campaign. We're going to be showing data and hopefully showing change and results in voter registration and turnout. But this is a long-term plan. So our first campaign is, basically 4 to 5 months. We want to run for a year. And then if we can sustain it, we want this to be ongoing. We believe this should be happening all over the country. So what is it? Do you have, Marion, is your hand raised for us, or is it left over from before? Okay, just want to make sure. So what is Claim Your Power? Do you want to read this one, Tana?
Yes. Claim Your Power is a democratic branding and voter engagement concept. It grows the Democratic brand, expands the voter base, attracts new Democratic voters, and encourage increased participation by low-frequency voters.
Yeah, and Kristen Weber, who many of you probably know, has come on to help us as treasurer of our PAC, where we are able to gather funds to put towards this very partisan effort. Should we play our video, Tiana?
Let's go.
I always like to ask. Here we go. Hopefully it'll work.
I'm Tiana McGabere. And I'm Helena West. And we are the originators of Claim Your Power, the Democratic branding campaign. Let's talk about why we decided to do this, Helena.
Yeah, Tiana and I both ran for office, and although we didn't win, we realized on an even deeper level how important voting is. Through that process, we learned what people can do with their vote, how a lot of people don't vote, and we want to make sure everybody votes.
The only people we're concerned about is people that do not vote in every election and don't vote at all. We want to talk to you. We want to bring you in to Claim Your Power. We want you to understand how important it is for you to vote in every election. You have to claim your power.
You got to claim your power.
You just got to do it.
Your vote is your power.
Get your power up, girl.
Claim your power. So
we crack ourselves up sometimes.
I know we have fun, but and I apologize. Sometimes there's these delays with Zoom when videos play off of computers to computers. So I apologize. The sound is a little bit off, but our hope is that we're going to be reaching all of the people who are not voting yet, give them a reason to vote, and then also get people come back to the polls. We found with our research, there's a lot of folks in North County who are still registered to vote, who haven't voted since 2008 or 2012 when they voted for Obama. They need a reason to vote. They need to be educated on what Democrats have done for them. And a lot of people don't know that all over the country. We need to do a better job communicating that overall. So just to reiterate, it's not a voter registration campaign. We're trying to support those already on the ground. There are so many good groups, so many people working so hard to educate people on the importance of voting and get them registered. And we are not trying to take their place. We're trying to support their efforts by putting an overlay of messaging that will support when they talk to someone and get them registered, that they will register and they will actually go to the polls. So I'll let you take this one, Sam.
All right. What are we using? We are using multi-channeling marketing. We're using it by digital display ads, digital video ads, digital audio ads, website, YouTube, and social media, and community partners.
And we're targeting much of North County for this first campaign. Our goal is to run year long. We just launched this at the end of May, and we started working on this and raising money and creating our content and researching, and we launched our first ads in the middle of September. Just a couple disclaimers. We don't take sides on elections. We want to support all Democrats, so we won't be running ads that include elected officials in the month before an election. Our message is that people should vote all the time and they should always vote for Democrats. And we work as volunteers. So without further ado, gonna try to see if this runs as a video. Here are our display ads, so you can see what we're talking about, what we've been doing. If you can't see that, somebody tell me. Okay. So these are display ads. They don't move. They appear, you know, in the middle of articles you're reading as you scroll through. And we have a bunch of them. This is just a sample. This is what they look like when they pop up on people's laptops, iPads, or phones. And we also have video ads that run. So get ready, 6 seconds goes by fast.
Your vote is your power to make a change. Claim your power and vote in every election. And when you vote, vote for Democrats because Democrats fight for you. Missouri voters have the power to change the future. Claim your power. Register to vote and vote for Democrats.
I think it shows power as an individual, that one person can really make a difference. There was a time where people like me couldn't vote. And so now that we can, I just want to take advantage of that and make sure that my voice is heard at every level possible so that I can even invoke the change that I want to see in the world one day.
I'm Terry Wilson, and I'm proud to be a Democrat because Democrats work for you.
Justice for George Floyd was really important to me. I'm not sure that we would have gotten justice if the Attorney General of Minnesota wasn't a Democrat and an African American. That makes me think how important voting is. From now on, I'm voting. Claim your power.
Paid for by Conversations Missouri, Kristen Weber, Treasurer. It's my cameo. We also have a website. When people click on the ads, if they click on them on purpose or accidentally, they end up getting sent to one of the pages on our website, which includes some very repeated messaging. We're not trying to give too much information. We're not trying to make it complicated. We're trying to keep it as simple as possible. We also have videos about voting and why it's so important that Yinka Floody helped us with, and thanks to Planned Parenthood. And we just have 6 key issues that we're publicizing right now, and we're reiterating is Democrats believe in Black Lives Matter, the stimulus check, child tax credit. This says Medicaid expansion back here, your voting rights. And then we have a little section that says, what about Republicans? And there's about 5 lines. It says something along like, sadly, Republicans, blah, 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 object to all those things. You know, we also have ads running on social media. That is not our strongest platform right now. We are working on expanding that next. That's sort of the next horizon. And I think we're going to be getting a couple of TikToks done soon. So that's our next goal. I want to get out of this for a second, just ask and answer any questions before we talk about data. Somebody told me at a presentation the other day that the data part is something some people just they tune out. So I want to answer any questions about the videos that anybody has. Just jump in,
Sandra
whoever
has a question. Yes, Sandra.
I have a question. I would like to know how you counteract the ads that the Republicans put in that are specifically one thing, and how do we counteract it? I love this, what you're doing, but how do we counteract this? And is this only for Missouri or is this nationwide?
It's a good question. Tiana, do you want to answer?
Well, we run our ads and we run them. This is right now only running in North County, but we have a lot of people in Kansas City that want it there, which what we're thinking is we will allow them to basically raise money to do the ads there, because we're trying to raise money to keep it going for here where we're trying to do it at. But yes, we're trying to get it statewide. And if it went nationwide, I think me and Helena would be screaming at the top of our lungs. You got anything to add?
Yeah, we just, part of the concept was that this is not a broad campaign, that it's hyper targeted. So this, because I live in West County, the messages that work in St. Louis City versus North County versus South County versus West County, they don't all work all the time. And one of my frustrations has been with the party messaging that comes out of the party platform every year. It's sort of, it only works certain places, and it doesn't really address everybody's main concerns. And so Tiana and I wanted to start with an area where we could make a big impact and also really talk to some issues that are important to the people in that area. If we get to expand into like a rural area, the messages are going to be different, and it might not even be claim your power. It might be something completely different that will have a theme that will resonate with that area or that type of audience. So we are trying to be very intentional and deliberate with our messaging.
We just started in North County because there was a lot of room for growth and a lot of people that are not voting. And if we can get them, gain their trust, because this is about trust, right? One of the things that I heard a lot when I was running is, oh, well, you politicians only come around when you want our vote. So that's something that really stuck in my head, because I'm not like that. I don't want to just come to somebody just at one time of the year. So I think this is just great in forming a relationship with the voting, and we're selling it, right? We're selling that, this is our product. The voters are the customers. You got to meet people where they're at. These kids, young people are carrying around their devices everywhere they go right now. So if you just study seeing popping up on your computer or your phone or claim your power, vote for Democrats, vote, we're thinking repetitive, and it's going to resonate with people like, you know what, I should be voting and I should vote for a Democrat, because a lot of people that I have came across, a few didn't even know, they were thinking nonpartisan was a party too, because so many cities say we're nonpartisan, and they're like, well, there's Democrats, Republicans, they're nonpartisan. And I'm like, wait a minute, no, okay,
that's not a party.
So there's no. So that
yeah. And also, Sandra, just one more thing to answer Sandra's question is, we're trying to actually use the best practices from the Republican Party. They put out messaging about what they want people to hear. They repeat it over and over. They don't bother to argue and discuss and debate and talk about facts. So we're actually just trying to do in our way what we can. Obviously, we need to be one of thousands of groups that is doing similar things or with lots of money, the same thing. Coordinated is good because it's consistent. People get the same message over and over, but that is exactly what we're trying to do. So, Christine?
Thank you.
Okay. I agree with your choice of North County as a target area. I campaigned for Obama twice, and then I was also campaigning for Senate candidates. And I can't remember for sure whether it was when I was campaigning for Robin Carnahan when she was running for the Senate, but I was campaigning in North County, and these two guys told me, oh, well, is she a Democrat? And I said, yeah. And he said, oh, she's going to win. And I said, no, you don't understand, statewide versus your particular district. So a lot of people in North County, they expect the Democrat in that county to win state house and state senate, and they didn't get the difference between US Senate being a state right, and it was important for them to vote. And so I think if everybody who is registered in St. Louis City, Kansas City, and North County voted, we could elect statewide Democrats.
That is exactly why this is so important. So thank you for bringing that up. We can win if everybody votes. We can win some statewide votes. But if we have the current, I don't know if you can still see my screen, but the voting trend in Missouri overall since 2004, we've lost market share, what I call market share. I think of things as products. Okay, so we've lost market share. But the reality is that only 30% of the population in Missouri is voting overall. There's a lot of people not voting. I looked up the current population. I looked up how many people voted. And this is what we get. Now, in one of the districts in North County, it's 44% of the residents are not voting, and many of them are registered, but they have not voted in a while. So exactly what you're saying is what we're trying to do. And that's why we're trying to grow the votes here. And yeah, so that's the concept. That's the first concept. And of course, we want to learn from data and keep growing. Do you guys want me to move on? Any other questions? I can't see everybody.
Marion
I do have a question. It seems that the rural areas of Missouri control the state.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if you're going to apply this same principle to the rural areas. I think that at one time we had a lot more market share in the rural areas, and we don't now. It might be a question of money, but I would think it would be a good idea to promote it in the rural areas because they have so much clout, really.
Yeah. Tiana, do you want to say anything?
Well, yeah, we definitely want to go into the rural areas. We actually even have candidate that ran for state representative, Alea Bailey. She is from the rural area, and she's very she understands it, and she's frustrated about it. So when we do our ads in that area, if we, raise the money to get to that point, we're going to use her for the messaging because she's young. She knows how to attract the young people. She just has a lot of ideas about rural areas. So there's definitely been a lot of meetings going on with her, just to see, how could this work in a rural area. So.
Yeah. And we've talked with Harvey Ferdman, and I talked to him extensively about it. He really wants to do something like that. And he has a lot of good advice about figuring out with people like Alea, what the messaging is going to be. And it has to be treated differently than this particular campaign. But that is something we do want to do. It's all about money. So we are, we are, of course, looking for contributions to our campaign today.
Our first ask is for you to grab your phones right now. So everybody should get their phones in your hands and wave them like you just don't care. No, I'm just kidding. And go to our Facebook page and what's our page on Facebook?
Claim Your Power Mo.
Claim Your Power Mo.
Put it up on screen here. If you can share our videos, we have lots of our ads up there, the ones that are long enough to be on a post. So we would really like it if you would, tell a friend, tell 10, share with everybody.
Get the word out. Tell us more groups we can come to talk to. We want to present this to more groups. So if you have someone you're like, hey, my group needs to hear about this, please invite us. We'll come.
Yeah.
And Helena will make the second ask.
I'll make the second ask because we need money. But we're also, in addition to, look, $25 basically buys about 125 impressions. So every little bit helps, and low dollar monthly helps us. But we are also, what we want to do is get some data together. And so we can prove our worth and attract some larger donors to support these efforts on an ongoing basis, right? We don't want to have to worry about every nickel and every dime every year. We want to know that we have something in place. We have to, of course, maintain it and promote it and raise money for it, but that we are going to be getting to people continually. So
And if
I just
you
want
know
to share.
larger donors, please tell them about us.
Yeah, please tell anybody with money about us.
Yes.
Send them our way.
Don has a question, Helena.
Don.
Go ahead, Don. We're listening.
So, and forgive me if I missed it, but have you done any research as to why people don't vote? I mean, obviously, a lot of us think it's just disenfranchisement or disengagement, but any deeper analysis of that question?
That is a great question, Don. We actually have on our page a survey, and we're asking people, why don't you vote? If you don't vote, why don't you vote? So that's something you can click, right, Helena? You can click.
Yeah, there are
into that.
surveys there, but our next cycle of ads are actually interactive HTMLs where people can say, do you vote, do you not vote? And they can click on it if they want to, and if they want to answer a question of why they can. I have relied, Don, on data that's kind of like available national. I mean, you read articles that have data, they talk about why people are voting, why people aren't voting. Gary Bloom just sent me an email this week about this program, and he sent me an article, a headline or something from Virginia. It said something along the lines of something around 60% of Democrats who voted in 2020 voted in 2021, but like 80% of the Republicans in Virginia who voted in 2020 voted in 2021 for governor. So people drop off from voting, even if they voted in 2020, they drop off. So obviously, Don, we don't have the money to do a crowdsourcing and data search like that. But I know that I know Deb is working on one in West County. But yeah, I think we're going off of sort of broad data that's sort of commonly understood. And then also, we do our research. Tiana tests stuff on the ground. And we talk to people
that don't vote, that don't care about voting. And we're like,
yeah,
you gotta.
And Tiana is now the Black organizer from Missouri for Planned Parenthood, and she's been talking to Black men in North County, even mayors who don't know that Planned Parenthood does anything except abortions.
Yeah,
and doesn't do anything for men. They just don't know. There is so much education that needs to happen. And we're trying.
It's interesting. You can't assume that people just know what you know. So you can't assume that people just know to vote. You can't assume that they even care to vote. You can't assume that they even know who's on the ballot and what they stand for. People are in their own little silos. They are trying to rob Peter to pay Paul. Pay their bills for the next week, decide whether they want to get their medicines or pay their mortgage. So people got a lot going on. Sometimes people don't know that they get the right to go vote from their job, and they're so worried about losing their job that they will just stand the chance of not voting because they think that, hey, if I take those lines along and if I'm an hour or 2 hours voting, I'm going to lose my job. So forget, so we have to repetitively talk about the things that will help people understand that, hey, this is your civic duty. This is your right. You should do this just like you do what you have to do, whether you're paying taxes, do this and that, you should vote.
Yeah, so. But we also really want people to vote for Democrats. I feel like there was so much money spent on Vote or Die and, all the MTV stuff and the musician stuff about voting. And it was so nonpartisan. It got a lot of people voting, especially including some people we prefer wouldn't. But we want to make sure people have a reason to vote for Democrats. I have heard from many people, Democrats aren't giving people a reason to vote for them. Mm-hmm. Well, we're trying to do that. So, so just to wrap it up,
you drop our link in the chat. So if anybody on here would like to make a donation to us, they can get to it easily. And have we already went through the data? Because I'm sorry, I had popped off here.
That's okay. No,
there's a couple more questions. Well, actually, one's just a comment in the chat box.
Okay, while you're asking the question, maybe Tiana try to answer it, and I will try to put the thing in the chat.
Okay. What's the question?
The first is just a statement, and of course the answer is yes. Wouldn't it be great if the Missouri Democratic Party did this kind of targeted marketing? Which of course, yes, it would be nice.
Yeah,
somebody's got an in with them. We should probably talk to them. the other question that
We've
I can
already talked to them to answer that question, and they know about us. And we just want to make sure that they understand we're not the competition, that we all have to work together to get Democrats out to vote. So that's how I'll answer that.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I think Michael Butler is generally supportive. I think he has a lot on his plate. And so but I said to Tim Pawlowski in South County the other day, I said, tell Michael to give us money. So, every little bit of advocacy helps. Jane, hi, Jane. Hi, Jane. Oh my God, it's so good to see you. Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Hi, Jane.
Okay, the other question. It goes to, is there a big discrepancy between white voters' rates of voting in North County as opposed to African-American voters in North County? Have you done any research regarding that?
That's an excellent question.
Are more likely to vote, white residents of North County more likely to go vote than African-American voters?
Well, I can let you know that one thing me and Helena did find out is, say that you're incarcerated and you get out as a white person versus get out as a Black person. The Black person is not really thinking about registering to vote and voting. And we've done this in our own little families, me and Helena have. That's why it's good that me and her work together. And she's white and I'm Black because we come together pretty good. But her and her family and a white family or whatever, it's just on the cards. You're gonna register to vote and you're gonna vote. And that's just not something that Black households or families really focus on, getting the incarcerated person, once they get out and they're not on parole or anything like that, registered to vote and get them voting. So that's something that we want to try to work on too, to make sure that African-American families are taking voting just as serious when your loved ones get out of jail, just like white families do. So
yeah, and I was speaking to someone who's helping us on the ground approach people who are off papers and able to register again after they have served their time and are off probation. And apparently this person reported to me that a lot of people are afraid to go register to vote, or they're afraid to vote because they believe that they will be arrested for something. They believe that they will be tracked and there will be some consequence that is negative, whether it's a parking ticket or anything. They feel very disenfranchised from that for a lot of reasons. So, but yeah, also we have yet to find anybody who has been raised, I would say we have yet to talk to, and they may exist, a Black person in North County who has said to us, yes, my parents raised me to vote and I voted every year and I haven't missed a presidential election since I was 18. We haven't had that. I mean, that's my story, but that is not the story that we're hearing on the ground. Most people say, I voted once. I haven't voted in a long time.
Vote don't count. Look at Missouri. We're not getting anything. The problem is too with the African Americans is when they come up to 70 to West County, it looks so much better than where they're living, where they're like, why should I vote? Look at all this trash. Look at where we live at. So, that's another thing that I'm really preaching to the elected officials over here. Have the cleanup days. Make it important about keeping, our city just as nice as when we go to West County and places like that. So it would really help to give, African-American voters hope about that they're going to be able to live just as nice lives as white families live through voting. And that's about trust. We've been talking a lot about forming relationships and gaining trust and things like that. So that's very important within Claim Your Power, to get the trust of the voters.
Yeah. And I'll just share some data about how our ads are doing. This is data from the first 2 weeks of the campaign, which was the last 2 weeks of September. So we were just sort of ramping up because it takes time for things to ramp up. There's a very complicated process to placing these ads. They have to be bid on. All of them are different prices depending on where they go and what time and what kind of ad they are and how long they are. So we have hired a very professional vendor who, they do some political work. Most of their work is in agriculture. They work for like John Deere and everybody. So they're very corporate, very professional. And our team is very happy that we're doing this. So our first display ads, we're running at 0.32% and 0.34% click-through rate. That's where somebody either purposely or accidentally clicks through. The average click-through rate for ads is 0.15%. So this is, you place 100,000 ads, you get a certain number of people. So we had about 14,000 people, I think, 14,000 impressions in the first 2 weeks. And our ads are performing well. They're performing double what's an average. And our video ads were performing 60% more. The people who we're working with can see how much of a video has been watched. They can see if the person, even if it's a 6-second video, did they watch the whole thing? Did they watch 2 seconds of it and swipe? They can see all of that. And our click-through, our video completion rate is very high. And I want to show you guys, I haven't gotten to put it into a nice format yet, but our October data is here. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if you can see that.
It's really small.
I know. I don't know what else to do.
That's the problem.
But I think it's doing our ads are doing real well too, because there's not really an election season right now. So they're like, oh, what is this? So I think it's a good time. If you want a copy of this, I guess, or to look at it, I think. Yeah,
we can, I'll take a screenshot of this, but I'll just run through it just verbally. In the last 2 weeks of September, we actually, I'm sorry, that was the first week, what I showed you. This is the last 2 weeks in September, we had 74,000 impressions. I thought that was low. I was like, what does that mean? And then in October, we had 164,000 plus impressions. And our click-through rate is 0.452, which is excellent. For our ads,
why don't you explain what impressions are, Helena, for people?
Yeah, it's just every time somebody sees something. So every time it pops up on somebody's phone is an impression. I don't want to say ad because it's like one ad gets a certain number of impressions and another ad gets a different number depending on the bidding and the placement and all of that. So so for anybody who is interested, our ads are running very well. There's constant, we have about 50 different ads that we run. They all hammer home the similar messages. The audio ads have a little bit deeper message, usually a little bit more personal. And if an ad is not performing well, it's taken out of circulation and it's replaced. So we always have high performing ads running. It's a really good team. So our basically we're doing really well. Our click-through rate on videos is 1.12. I know it doesn't make any difference to you guys, but we just are very happy with it. And we just started rolling out a lot of our audio ads. And so they are starting to be heard and we're starting to get data on them. You'll see they're very low right now. That's when people are listening to like Spotify or Pandora and an ad pops up. There aren't that many of those. So it's a really good amount of exposure on those channels. So I guess that's really it. I think I put the ActBlue link in the chat, and I will definitely send this report. I'll just take a screen grab of it and put it in the chat as well, so you guys can kind of see where we are. We're excited, we're happy, and we think the campaign's going well. Go ahead, Dennis.
I guess my question is, I'm noticing that you've got, I'm looking, for example, at your line 12, it says display demo and device matching, and then it says 18 plus non-registered voters. So are you able to actually track the viewing by folks who are non-voters? In other words, you've kind of cross-checked that with the database? And Helena just said one moment, so I don't know if
she did.
She's going to answer that.
Yes, I think they are.
Sorry, I had to put the dog outside because he was begging for something. So sorry. So yeah, we actually got a list from the Board of Elections of every registered voter and then sifted out manually anybody who didn't vote in 2020 and provided that list to the vendor. So they are trying to find those folks as people who are registered but not voting and have not voted recently. And then we're also targeting people 18 plus who are non-registered voters. Our really best in this particular area, our best growing audience is young people, people who haven't voted yet. They can be brought into the fold and they can be educated and they can be hopefully, become voters. And so, yeah, but I will say probably the data that this vendor has is much better than the Board of Elections data, to be quite honest with you. They are the people they pay, Facebook and Nexus Lexus and all the other people who steal our information or grab our information every time we use our credit card or go on Facebook or look at an app. They grab all of our information and they know a lot about us. So yes, we are targeting people who are registered vote but did not vote in 2020, and young people 18 plus non-voters, non-registered.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions and I'm gonna have to hop off here within like 5 minutes. But she can definitely hold it down. But I'm so glad that you guys let us speak today. I want to point out that Wendell is on here and he is from my job with me, Planned Parenthood, and he's trying to set up a committee in West County. And so I invited him on here. So before you guys end your meeting, please let him speak to you, get some names, things like that, because Planned Parenthood is coming to West County and we want to put together a committee and stuff. So Wendell, don't let them kick you off without saying anything. I'm going to jump off here if there's not any other questions. Claim your power, talk about us, let people know. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. I feel like this is huge. We're doing a little bit like we've been constant on raising money. It's not like we have been like not being able to do what we've needed to do so far. But the thing is, we want to continue it because we see how well it's doing. So that makes us, just do more meetings, talk to more people. Like, we want this thing to go statewide. We want it to go national because it needs to. And there's so many different people. It's not just, I'm sure it's not just Black kids that got stimulus checks and just spent the money and didn't care. It's all kind of racist. So we need to explain to them, why it's important to vote. And that's the only reason that this was started, was because, I just felt like people should know why if you like the money, you need to know, how you got it, and you need to vote.
Okay. So. Well, thank you very much, ladies. We really appreciate your time this morning, and I hope that people will go to your website and check it out further. And before we go to our legislative report, Wendell, would you like to make a brief announcement?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and I will make sure to make it brief. But yeah, I'm Wendell. I'm the St. Louis organizer with Planned Parenthood Advocates, and thank you so much, Tiana, for inviting me into this space. We work together as well, and it's cool to hear about all the other amazing things that you work on. But we have, as Planned Parenthood, we have a lot of work around reproductive freedom and advocacy and protecting healthcare access for women and for people of all genders, especially in the coming year. So we have an upcoming event. We'll be talking about that. It's going to be happening virtually this upcoming Saturday. That's really the best place to get the information about what's happening ahead, as well as this West County Action Council that we're trying to build up, because the West County is really going to be a key area in general, and especially in the next year. And if you aren't able to make that event, but you're interested in learning more and potentially participating or volunteering in Planned Parenthood Advocates, work in the in the coming months. I can also drop my email in the chat box, so you can email me directly with any questions or if you want to get involved. But definitely, I would recommend coming to our event. That should be really, really great this next Saturday. It's going to be virtual, 11 to 12:30, and there's the registration link. And thank you for giving me the space.
Thank you very much, Wendell. Okay. Okay, Glenn, are you ready to roll?
Yes, I am. I get to start off with good news. On late Friday evening, the House Representative passed the Infrastructure Act, which the good news is that'll bring billions of dollars to Missouri and other states. The bad news is it passed the Senate in August. And as one CNN host said, basically the bill survived the Democrats' circular firing squad. We are going to have some pushback on this in the St. Louis area. Cori Bush and the other members of the squad voted against the infrastructure bill. And it would have theoretically tied without them or been voted in by one vote, but actually it was 13 Republicans who crossed the aisle, about 10 of whom are not running for re-election, that pushed that over the finish line. But there is going to be some pushback from organized labor and other groups over the fact that Cori Bush did not support a bill that labor was very much in favor of. We still are looking at some other votes this fall, we hope. Of course, you've all heard about what they're calling the social infrastructure bill with family leave and other provisions. That is being held up basically by two Democratic senators, Sinema and Manchin. So that's going to be a problem. Also, Republicans are standing in the way of voting rights legislation. Remember, we now have what a lot of people call filibuster light. Instead of in the old days where Jimmy Stewart stood on the floor of the Senate for 3 days talking, what we now have is you can put your name on a memo and that constitutes a filibuster. And the Republicans are using that to hold up the Voting Rights Act. They're not going out on the floor and talking for hours or hours. I remember Scott Sifton and Senator Rizzo from the Kansas City area used to go and stand on the floor of the Missouri State Senate talking baseball and Star Wars to delay registration. They don't do that in Washington anymore. That's one of the big reasons why filibuster reform needs to happen, but that's probably a 2022 thing, not a 2021 thing. Also, there is a big push for a minimum wage increase at the federal level. Remember, the federal minimum wage was last increased during the early years of the Obama administration and is still, $7.25 an hour. It's very critical that we get national minimum wage increases. Right now, unfortunately, there is some evidence that jobs are going from states, including Missouri, that have higher minimum wages to areas that don't have local minimum wages. If you raise the floor to say $14 or $15 an hour, that keeps a lot of those jobs where they are. There's less incentive for employers to move to another state to save $5 or $6 an hour. The other thing coming up is called the PRO Act. There is a measure in the Senate right now, which has 47 co-sponsors, all Democrats, which would permanently prohibit right to work in any state and give workers many more protections for union organizing. Also would hold the employer's feet to the fire on negotiating their first contract after a union is recognized. The problem is that has 47 Democratic senators behind it. Two of the senators who are not co-sponsors are Manchin and Sinema, who have stood in the way of other legislation. Remember, the Republicans think nothing of gumming up the works. Did you know we have not had a permanent head of alcohol, tobacco, and firearms since the end of the Obama administration? Republicans not only have stood in the way of Joe Biden's nominee for ATF, They've stood in the way of the Republicans' nominee for ATF because the gun lobby didn't like that person. The GOP thinks nothing of using their power to gum up the works, even on basic government action. On a positive note, if you watched the news last week, Joe Biden actually looked presidential going overseas and interacting with other world leaders, which is something we weren't used to for a few years there. The bad news is it's going to take a long time for America to regain its position and its standing. We're going to have to show our commitment to things like reducing carbon emissions, like cooperating on a plan for Iran and things like that. Because of the fact, after 4 years of a Fox News presidency, a lot of the world just doesn't trust us. As you've noticed, inflation is way up, especially gasoline prices and other things. But that's not really a surprise because of the kink in the supply chain caused by the pandemic. I was talking to a gentleman at a hardware store, and he told me during the pandemic, the lumber mills closed down. So that's why the price of lumber went up. Well, the thing is, people cut back on building. And in the last few months, the price of lumber has actually gone down. It's still higher than it was 2 years ago, but that huge spike is no longer there and things are returning to normal. But people aren't buying and building as much because they still remember that spike that came in. The same way with foodstuffs. The same way the fact we are probably going to have higher priced turkeys and fewer of them in Thanksgiving. And of course, the Republicans will blame this on Biden, when the reality is this is a natural reaction to an upset in the market that lasted a long time. Another thing to remember, all these people talking about Americans not wanting to work, if you've watched the news closely and done a little bit of reading, you'll see that some people who are out of work claim they have filled out 200 or 300 job applications online and not gotten callbacks. The other thing is the fact Amazon is still increasing their workforce. In fact, they're going to be adding several hundred jobs in the next couple of months for their new location in Fenton. One of the problems we're seeing is there's this downturn in the number of available people for lower paying jobs, young people in starter jobs or jobs just above minimum wage. That population is decreasing. And yet Amazon and a few other major employers are soaking up a lot of that population. Plus, the landscaping bit people have told me, I've been trying to get bids on some landscaping work. They were not allowed to bring in seasonal legal workers from Mexico. As a result, the major landscaping companies are having problems keeping up with their basic work. They're not looking for other work, and the people they have, they're working them to death. And these are seasonal jobs. People cutting grass and doing cute little gardens don't work in December, January, and February. So there are issues there. That dearth of jobs or dearth of people for these jobs is true, but it's a more complicated and nuanced situation than you hear from the Republicans and see in the media a lot of times. Now, coming back to Missouri, did anyone watch 60 Minutes last night? As somebody alluded to, the Second Amendment Preservation Act was one of the big stories on 60 Minutes. Looking ahead to 2022, there are certain things we can predict are going to be on the legislators' front page because it's an election year and a lot of these Republicans need bullet points to put on their campaign literature. We're expecting multiple bills banning critical race theory, whatever that is, and also taking more control of curriculum from local school boards and handing it to the state. Kind of what's already happened in Texas, where they have a textbook commission, which basically controls what gets taught in Texas schools. Also, we can expect going to see a version of the Texas abortion law. Even if it gets struck down by the Supreme Court, Missouri legislators will try to put something, either that exact language or very, very close. Plus, despite what you saw with Guns Everywhere and how successful that's been for the Republicans, Guns Everywhere is going to make a comeback. Because believe it or not, there are Republicans who are convinced we'd all be safer if when you sit down in church, everybody was packing a concealed handgun. And unfortunately, they have convinced their constituents that Joe Biden is one pen stroke away from taking away all of America's guns. And only the Missouri legislature stands between gun confiscation and Americans' right to the Second Amendment. We're also expecting a new right to work bill. And the one wrinkle we're hearing about, rather than having a statewide right to work bill, they would allow counties to enact their own right to work. In other words, St. Louis County or Knox County, they could have right to work in that county. And it wouldn't require a vote of the people and be legal because it only apply in that county. That would cause a tremendous number of problems, even for contractors bidding jobs in different counties. So, but it is very clear that they want, many Republicans want that to happen. Also, it's not going to be easier to vote in 2022. They're going to do everything they can to make it harder to vote. We have already heard of a lot of legislation. We could go back to requiring a notarized absentee ballot. We could be in a situation where early voting and voting by mail is virtually impossible. We're also looking at a situation where the legislature is probably going to propose legislation that the legislature can overturn an election result if they suspect or claim they have evidence of impropriety. Remember, in the states where Trump claimed that he had votes stolen from him, in most cases, other incumbent Republicans won their races. So Trump's claim that only in the presidential race was there all sorts of shenanigans, unfortunately has a lot of people believing it. And more importantly, a lot of legislatures looking to make hay by taking steps to control voting. So even though we have a Republican Secretary of State and the majority of Missouri counties have Republican county clerks, and even though St. Louis City and County have gubernatorial appointed election boards, you're going to hear an awful lot about how crooked the elections are, even though the Republicans seem to win most of them. Another thing to remember, we are in the middle of redistricting. It is turning into a lot of chaos at the state level. Starting at the top, the state has all the data they need for the congressional redistricting. And yet the governor has not called a special session to consider it. It appears he hasn't called a special session because Republicans are in disarray as to how they want to see the lines drawn. And it keeps coming back to a concern by some ultra-conservative, conservative caucus members in St. Charles County and a couple other parts of the state that they think they're being squeezed out. So we're probably going to see the congressional redistricting take place in the first couple of weeks of the new legislative section in January, meaning the ink on the maps won't be dry before candidates have to file. And that could have a lot of impact depending on how those lines are drawn, especially if some Republicans get their way and much of St. Charles County is removed from the 3rd congressional district and added to the 2nd congressional district. That would make the portion of the 2nd congressional district in St. Louis County get smaller, and it causes a ripple effect all across the state. But stay tuned for that. I attended the Senate and House redistricting meetings they had up by the airport last month, and they were a little bit scary. For one thing, the staff from the Office of Administration, to me, appears to be openly pro-Republican. And not just because of the fact none of the state workers wore masks, even though we were in a building in a county with a mask mandate. It appears that the commissions for the House and the Senate are going to do what they can to maximize the vote or maximize the number of Republican districts. Theoretically, under their dirty Missouri proposition, these 20-person bipartisan commissions are supposed to be free of political influence. If you believe that, let me sell you some bridges. We're going to see a really set of nasty maps come out, but they're probably not going to come out until they get through the courts. The same thing is happening in other places around the country. It's not just Missouri. But when trend seems to be a fear among Republicans that because the general population is moving away from rural areas, that they're afraid their rural legislators are going to lose a lot of their clout. Looking at the census numbers, in St. Louis County, we have a couple dozen state representatives. If they draw a fair map, this time in northwestern Missouri, there's going to be at least one state representative district that includes 7 counties. You can actually walk from Mexico to Canada and never set foot in a county that hasn't lost population in the last 10 years. This is especially true in rural Missouri. We have 2 counties on the southern flank that have lost more than 20% of their population in the past decade. We have a lot of counties that have lost 5 or 8% of their population. That's critical because the Missouri legislature, the Republicans, have always been a rural-based, a rural-oriented party. And every year there's fewer rural people to help them. And as a result, you're going to see a lot of crazy lines. Don't be surprised if we see a number of districts that take in little corners of St. Louis County and then go into Franklin County or Jefferson County or St. Charles County. We have a couple of districts that cross county lines now. We have some districts that cross within the city and county. Look to see them do everything they can to reduce the political clout of St. Louis County, which has more than 1 million people. Now, to end off, I want to tell you how Mike Parson stole $54 million from poor Missourians. The food stamp program had the pandemic bonus going on through September 30th. In August of this year, Missouri distributed $159 million in food stamps. Now, the pandemic bonus went through September 30th. Missouri did not claim the pandemic bonus in September. The result was families in Missouri, they got $159 million in August. They got $105 million in benefits in September. That's $54 million, which would have helped struggling families and wound up in cash registers around the state. Most other states made sure they got their pandemic bonus up until the last day. But not Missouri. Our governor's administration went out of their way not to claim that money. Because this is the same governor who ended the pandemic bonus for unemployment early and has spent very little of the pandemic relief funds on things such as helping people with rent, helping employers, and preserving jobs. So our governor, he did come to St. Louis to announce the President's Cup. They're going to have a golf tournament in 2030 where if you pay $1,500, you can stand around and applaud when golfers make a nice shot. But when it comes to taking care of everyday Missourians, that's not Governor Parson's top priority. Any questions? I see a bunch of things in chat. Let me pull those up.
I had to mute myself because I saw the FedEx guy coming up to the door and I knew the dog would go bonkers. I'm looking in the chat. Anybody have any questions for Glenn?
Glenn, I have a question. Do you have any hint or inkling about what's going to happen with the 5th congressional district?
We know that the 1st congressional district took a pretty sizable loss in population. Besides the loss in the city of about 5,000, there was a shift in population of about 25,000 people from Northeast County and primarily heavily African-American communities towards the south and west. So the boundaries of the first are going to have to expand. How far they expand, we don't know yet. That's one of those things that gets caught up in that mix. The second congressional district seems to be the one everybody's paying attention to. And how that settles out is going to impact the first. The first definitely is going to start the Mississippi River in the city of St. Louis. How far west and north or west it goes and how far south it goes is up in the air. But they will have to expand those lines because Missouri, because of the shift, they're going to have to pick up about 42,000 people into the first congressional district. And to do that, they've got to come into territory that's now the second down south and west of the current first. Remember, the first already covers Webster Groves. So to get to 42,000 more, you've got to take in a lot more territory.
Okay. Anything else for Glenn? Okay. Suzanne got some exciting news earlier today. The Union Hall will be available to us for our January meeting. I'm not sure what the date of the second Monday in January is, but we will figure that out. So we will be able to meet in the Union Hall effective in January of 22. You will need to wear a mask and you will need to bring your vaccination card. We will have to check those. Okay. Dennis, you have a question?
Yeah, first of all, congratulations, Karen, for being appointed to the county council redistricting to fill a vacancy that was there. And I know they've got their first meeting or a meeting. I don't know if it's their first meeting tonight, but I just wondered if you could spend a moment or two from your short amount of time already being appointed of what you know or what you can tell us about where things stand and where things are going.
In all honesty, there have been several emails come through this morning. Glenn asked me if I had perused them yet. And I said, no, I had to get through noonday. It's interesting. The process looks interesting. There's data to disseminate and all sorts of things. And Glenn, would you care to chime in at all? I just got in there last week, so I am definitely playing catch up.
We are in a situation right now where the Republicans are going to bring in maps this evening at the public meeting. And we already have a pretty good idea what their maps look like. Their maps are designed to largely follow the existing lines, but tweak them so that they would be a 3-3-1 map, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, and 1 at-large seat. Based on the population voting trends in St. Louis County, remember the county voted for not just Joe Biden, but also for Claire McCaskill and Nicole Galloway. We think a map that is 4-2-1 or even 5-2 is more fair. And so it's going to get very, very interesting. Republicans are presenting their map. We're working on a map. And one of the things I alluded to with Karen, we got an 11 meg email today with the latest from our data nerd. So we know what we're doing. It's going to be a messy process. Remember, you can tell Democrats and Republicans at these meetings, the Democrats are the ones wearing masks in the county council chamber. We're also the ones trying to encourage public input. We were very unhappy that the county wasn't able to accommodate us when we asked to be able to have meetings in South County, West County, and North County. It turns out that St. Louis County government lacks the technical expertise of your typical 17-year-old. And so we could not originate meetings that could be on WebEx, even from county libraries, even though they have Wi-Fi and they have the infrastructure we need, because the county didn't have the stuff, didn't have the cameras and little things to make it happen.
So we're back in the county council chambers tonight.
Yes, everyone is welcome, especially Democrats.
Yes, yes.
And I'm assuming it's advantageous to try to have a show that the Democrats are interested and concerned by being there with masks.
Yeah, please wear your mask.
That would be great. It would be great. Yes, I've got emails to churn through this afternoon. Okay, I guess that's it for this time. Again, please join us on December 13th when we will have Michael Berg, the political director of the Missouri chapter of the Sierra Club, to talk with us. And if you've not yet gotten your booster shot, you might want to look into that if it suits your age group. Until then, have a nice day. It's gorgeous outside. Meeting adjourned. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.